You're listening to Richard Vobes.
I'm only 10 years old. A life subscription to tins of beans. Don't know what the pollution is like, of course. I'll start again. I'm so excited. I'm only 10 years old. I hate to say this, but Eric will never get anywhere in life.
That's right, sir. Okay, we're not all thick. Just me.
1 square short of a chocolate bar. No chaos here! So I'm rather upset about that. What is the matter with that man? He is driving that bus far too many times. That's a second reference to James Bond we've had in today's show. Now, you may remember on the show that he had a go. Oh my goodness gracious me. Isn't it amazing how many people can be just so wrong? I wonder what they said about the Vobes. How nice of the Queen.
My husband and I would rather be thrilled if you would become Prime Minister. Thanks awfully.
I think that would be absolutely splendiferous if you asked me, but nobody was, which was a bit of a shame. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Vobes Show. It is the 29th of January. It's Tuesday. Oh, we're getting through the week now. It's still 2008. We're not at 2009 yet, though, but we are at the end of Jan. Just a couple more days. That's rather good. Have you had a good day? I took the day off yesterday, Monday. I'm recording this actually Monday evening for Tuesday. And I went out, tell you about that in today's show a little bit later on. I was supposed to be going up to Moorfields, ladies and gentlemen. I was supposed to be going up there. Oh, might have a moan about that as well. Don't like all these things, do you? No. When things go wrong, I mean, some of today went wrong. I was cooking some dinner this evening, was going to have chips, something nice and easy. And I obviously bought some cheap, nasty oven chips. Well, you shouldn't really buy those sort of things anyway. It's my own blinking fault. We're going to have sausage, chips and eggs. Eggs, sausage and chips, just something easy. For a change. And the chips are wrong. So what I had to do in the end, I had to go down to the co-op and buy some potatoes. I thought I'd make some mash. Everything got a bit behind. So recording this show a little bit later than norm for me. But there you are. We'll get on with the show anyway. Today's show is fueled by a nice warm mug of Bovril. I have it here steaming in front of me. I bet that'll be in a sweeper. Yes, I have it here steaming in front of me. That gives him a second chance, you see. Oh, it's lovely. I'm just having another slurp. Right, 29th of January. Whose birthday could it be? Who shares their birthday? Well, I can tell you. W.C. Fields in 1880. Tony Blackburn in 1943, Tom Selleck in 1945, Tim Healy 1952, and in 1954 it's Oprah Winfrey. And I'm sure plenty of others too. Welcome to the show. Lovely to have you with us. Now, today I was supposed to be going up to Moorfields and I was going to have my eyes tested by the wonderful Mr. Dart, who is, of course, a doctor, but he is a Mr. Dart because he is one of the leading experts on acanthamoeba cariitis, which is one of the horrible, nasty diseases. Well, the nasty, not one of. I don't have a sort of a load of diseases, you know. I'm not a diseased individual, I let you know. At least I don't think so. He was supposed to see me today, but unfortunately I went to the train station. Yes, I was going to go to the train station. After I went to Moorfields, I was going to meet up with my mate Paul Stoneman, and we were going to go to murder execution sites in London. We were all prepared. We had all our facts ready, and we were off. I got up nice and early, 5 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock I got up, turned on the water, made sure it was heating up. At 5 o'clock I got up and dipped my body, my naked naked body into that lovely water, and I was ready, really. I was ready then to go down to the train station. Went out the door, bit of mist. Oh, a bit misty today. When I bought my ticket to go up to London from Worthing, 60 miles. £42 it does cost me to do this little trip. And, well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Have a little guess. Yes, a little bit of mist and 3 degrees centigrade. Not very much, is it? Not very trying, but it is, apparently, for National Railways, because, due to bad conditions, all the bleeding trains at 5 to 7 were late. There was a train that was supposed to have left Worthing at 6:13 for London Bridge, and I turn up at about 6:45 to catch the 10 to 7 train to Victoria, and the London Bridge train had not as yet arrived, and in fact it didn't arrive until 7:30, which was an hour and 15 minutes late. If you were on that train, then I am really sorry for you. It wasn't the train I wanted, and it wasn't the train I'd paid for. And it hadn't arrived, and I was standing there, and then it kept saying, it's now at so-and-so, and, it's going to be another 5 minutes on top of the last time that we went. And I thought, bloody trains, do they have this in other countries? I don't think so. I think that countries do work out what are the sort of extremes of temperatures that we have to suffer, and we will also make sure that our trains will run on all those sort of things, because after all, prompt attention to trains running on time is a factor. And, it's not rocket science, is it? You've just got a bit of electricity running through the rails and a train that chuffs along on it. I don't know, how hard can it be? Well, it does seem to be bloody hard. And on the same day, irony would have it that over in Bath, I understand, in Bath, my headphones are making a little itchy, scratchy noise in my ear, which is not very good. In Bath, I understand that they were having a protest day where they were not going to buy the exorbitant prices that the train organisers are asking of their tickets. And so somebody had printed up a whole load of dummy tickets, and they were presenting these dummy tickets. And this is a protest against all the delays, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, delays! Excuse me, there is a delay on platform 3, the 6:13 to London Bridge, calling at all stations to London and its bridge, even though it fell down several million years ago, has been delayed. This is a recorded announcement, and I am sorry for the results of your delay. We will not charge you less on this train service. You still have to pay well over the odds because you are going in peak time, although peak is a little bit of a laugh, seeing as our trains are shuffling along at about -2 miles an hour. We do apologise for this service, and we will keep apologising in as much snivelling sort of voice that we can, but we will not provide you with cups of tea and warm cakes or anything else to shelter in whilst you're shivering on the platform in the -3 degrees centigrade. We're sorry that we can't do that because we didn't think about it at all. Your service is always welcome here at stupid rip-off prices. Thank you and good night. Good night. Oh, sorry, supposed to switch that off. That's kind of how you feel. So in the end, you know what I did? I'll tell you what I did. I gave up. I just gave up. I went back to the ticket office and I thought, sod it. I'm not going up to London. And I could see the platform. More and more people were arriving to catch different trains. They'd timed, you know. The people who were supposed to be on the 6:13 train, they should have left an hour and what have you ago. And then the next lot that would have catch the next train, they would have come in. And so this platform was incredibly crowded. And you can imagine this picture going on all the platforms all the way up to blinking London. And we weren't the first. So that train meant an hour and a half standing, very uncomfortable. Now, I've done that many times, but I really couldn't face it, to be honest. And I knew that I had missed my appointment because it was going to be, if it was going to be that long, it was timed. The train I wanted to catch was timed early enough to get up to Moorfields just by 9. I knew I was cutting it fine anyway. So in the end, I think, sod this. So I cancelled it. I got my money back at the ticket office and I went home and I rang up Moorfields and I said, look, I'm ever so sorry, but the trains are cancelled, you know. They said, there's no problem at all. Give us a call tomorrow and we will assign you with another appointment. And I thought, well, I'm not in absolute agony or anything like that, so that hasn't been too bad. Otherwise, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I would be the first to go to the loony bin and complain. How very Richard Vobes of me.
Compelling entertainment and exercises all of your emotional muscles.
Too many noodles.
Yeah, so it was a bit scary, really, a bit imposing.
Don't slash the Vobes' throat, please. MySpace, I'll have a MySpace. Yeah, MySpace. Yeah, all right, mate. Yeah, got MySpace. You got it.
Silence in court!
Do you have... and his brother.
Yeah.
Do you remember Clive Scrimshaw?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, a big brute of a man. Going to the loony bin.
The loony bin!
Did you ever have to take anyone to a loony bin? Does seem to be okay here in the beach hut in Worthing. No enemy aircraft ahead, and I've never bathed with the stickleback. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we went to the Selden Arms the other day, Sunday, in fact, and we enjoyed some very interesting beers on that day. I thought it would be pertinent to play some of that wonderful episode into the show, as I know you've been prepped from yesterday's little tease. Here it is. It's just after midday, and Jimmy and Paul and I are sitting in a pub. Not an uncommon thing, really, for us to be doing, but, of course, it's that time of year, our annual visit to the... Where is it, Jimmy?
It's the Selden.
Oh, the Selden home! Just a little bit. We don't get down here regularly enough, really.
No, I should come down here a lot more regular.
However, now then, we're on our pub crawl, beer crawl, really. But unfortunately, being the last day of this 3-day beer festival, 2008, there doesn't seem to be very much left.
No.
There was a huge load of exciting stuff, which I was hoping to try, including the Dark Star Ported Porter and the Ringwood Rum Porter.
And this would...
and the 6 Hop Ale from Dark Star, but... alas, they have all gone.
They've all been crossed off the list.
However, we do have some diversity of beers on there to try, but also the boys have plumped for something rather special. What is it, Paul?
This is the porter, or just labelled beer, 5%.
That's how we like labelling, isn't it? Clear and concise.
But it's not just the porter. It's been sat in the cellar here at the Selden Arms for over a year, is it?
A year, she says, yeah, and she's already ordered next year's.
So, what's it like?
It's lovely. It really is lovely.
I had a little sample. It's quite smooth.
Smooth, very smooth. Yes, and it's a lovely taste. Can't fault it at all.
Lovely. And you've only got a half, haven't you? Just a half. Well, I've got a half of something slightly different. I've got the Studland Shipwreck.
Yeah, Shipwrecked, which is with all the shipwrecks about at the moment, it's quite apt,
isn't it? Particularly with the wreck of all that lovely wood that's turned up, which is actually it's not bad. I like it because I've been to Studland Bay many times. Oh, there's another one. What are you crossing off now, Michelle?
Critical mass.
Oh. Thanks for that. Is that Dark Star?
Yeah.
How's the festival gone this year, then, Michelle?
Well,
Has
very, very. Oh, he's off again, isn't it?
He's off again.
He's off. Yes, very well.
We noticed that a lot of people yesterday were outside the front smoking away.
I think that's been a huge plus this year.
Has it?
Non-smoking, yeah.
Non-smoking. How's that been?
Good.
Well, there we are. That was Michelle, the woman of monosyllabic responses. And she's going round, crossing off the beer rather rapidly. So is it going to be a bit of a busy day in here today? Or is there not much reason to come in anymore? How many have you got left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beers.
And 3 on the bar.
And 3 on the bar.
That'd be 9.
That's 9. Yeah, I can count. At the moment, I can.
I say you can count because when we first came in, you looked at what was left and you quickly worked out, we can afford to have a half of everything.
Although blink, and I think we're going to miss it. What have we got left then to try? Tell me, do you have any of the White Horse?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
Is that nice?
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Do you say anything
about to
other than
go?
yes? No. Can I have a half pint of your giant, please? The White Horse Giant. Right.
Bob round the corner.
Well, I better get it in now because if we don't get it in, it's going to be gone. Sorry, the Vobes here moaning away like buggery this morning.
So, shall I get this round in? Yes, I'll get this round. Maybe. I'll edit that bit out. So we move round now to the stillage here,
Where the beers
where the real barrels are, which look rather. Actually, there's not very many of them. They've obviously.
I'll tell you what, I'll give them £1 each for the slop pails.
Will you?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that actually. Oh look, there is that giant there in the orange barrel. That's an interesting coloured barrel. I've never seen
Plastic, isn't it?
Is it a plastic barrel? Plastic barrel. Could I have is that the that's the giant, the white horse, Jobby? Can I have a half of that, please? Your very nice lordship, sir.
You have to beg for them.
I know. I'll get down on my bended knee. What are you boys having?
The bashful beaver, please.
Oh.
Bashful beaver.
The bashful beaver.
The bashful beaver is gone. I'm so sorry.
No, it's still there.
Oh, it is still there.
It's still there.
Yeah.
Much obliged. Oh, that looks nice.
Yes, please.
And Jimmy, what are you after?
I quite fancy. How strong's the gribble? Or bashful beaver? Oh yeah, I think
You're just copying Paul all the way, aren't you?
What else?
I don't know, birds of a feather you are.
Yeah.
Man and girl.
We like the strong. You're the hoppy one. You're the flowery person.
That's true.
Yes, please.
We now moved on, having been to the stillage. Second beer of the day. Boys, you seem to have be a little bit unsatisfied with the beer that you've been. What have you got now?
From the Gribble, bashful beaver.
Yes.
And
What do you
after
think of
drinking,
that?
well, it must be quite nice. But after drinking the porter, it's kind of it's taken all the taste buds away.
It's like drinking tea after having peppermint sweet, isn't it? It's gone completely.
So, do you think that it was a bit stupid then to enjoy that lovely porter first off?
No, definitely no. I wouldn't have missed that porter for the world. In fact, I might have a half of that. 'Cause it's lovely.
Very, very good indeed. I am disappointed with this, yes, but I'm probably not appreciating it as much as we should. It was low, wasn't it? So that's why we went for. Paul persuaded me, come to think of it, actually.
So that was the Bashful Beaver from Gribble. I'm still trying to get through my Studland Bay wreck, which is very nice. I'm enjoying that. But the one I went for was the White Horse Giant, which is a ruby red traditional English ale with an intriguing hop flavour, which is here. I'm going to take a little sample of that. Ooh, that's quite nice. It's a bit more flavour than your Gribbles, I'm afraid.
There's a bit of flavour coming through. It's a bit unfair to really say that there's no flavour in it because we've had the porter. But I think give it a few minutes.
I did taste yours. I did taste yours, and it does taste a lot less. Try a little bit of mine compared to your.
For a hoppy beer, you tend to expect something that's a bit light in colour, but it's very dark. As you say, it's a ruby.
Yes.
More body to
There
that
is,
than the Gribble.
Yeah, there is, definitely. Yeah, there's a bit of taste in that. Yes.
Do you want to try a bit, Jimmy?
He's rubbing it in, isn't he? He's rubbing it in. Oh, that's very
It's nice, smooth, relaxing.
slightly oaky taste as well.
Not too hoppy. Not too hoppy. It's not like the hophead or whatever.
That came out of a plastic barrel, though, didn't it?
Yeah, an orange plastic barrel.
Orange plastic, but it really does
Look
taste
a bit
woody.
like a.
An orange plastic barrel.
Well, look, I was thinking more like a buoy that you would see in the sea. You know, moored up to a ship.
Could be. American cousins would say buoy.
Yeah, it's a little buoy.
There you go. That was our lovely little trip to the Selden Arms Beer Festival. There is a second part to that. And we may play that in tomorrow. We'll see how we feel. I need to listen to the second half to see just how self-indulgent and how drunk we were. Ladies and gentlemen, we went to Lewis today. I say we, that is myself and the lovely Paul Stoneman. Yes, Paul Stoneman and I, we didn't go up to London, so we said, what should we do? Should we do something else? And I said, yeah, OK, let's have a cogitate. So we did. And I said to Paul, you know what, let's go to Lewis. I said, why Lewis? I said, well, not only is it a historic ancient town, the county town, the old county town of Sussex, but it's also got a number of interesting bookshops. Do you know, I said that word and he was knocking on my door immediately. And so that's what we did. We went to the lovely town of it's near Brighton, fairly near Brighton anyway, Lewis, which is very nice. And we wandered up and down the high street. We looked a little bit at the castle, and we mainly spent most of the time, ladies and gentlemen, sad as you may think it is, in bookshops. You have to, don't you? So what did I buy? What did I purchase in there? In one bookshop, I saw going for £3, and I thought this was a bargain. It's Lisa. What's her name? Lisa Pickard's Victorian London. Now, I have got her Elizabethan London, which is interesting. This is the life of a city from 1840 to 1870. So that will be quite interesting. A number of pictures in there. And, of course, it's seeing a lot of interesting things happen, including railways and what have you. That's in the Victorian era. And that is something I do want to find out about. Another one, which I happened to see in another bookshop, we went to 4 bookshops. Now, normally, I can tell you, in this day and age, thanks to the internet, a lot of bookshops no longer have the premises. You can't just go in and browse and see what you like. You can find second-hand bookshops online, of course. Amazon are very good. They do support bookshops. But it's nice to go in there and just sort of see what comes up, because sometimes you see things, and that's really how I love buying books. One of those is a book here, which I purchased for a very reasonable price. I think it was a £5. I can't remember now. It's called The Great Revolt of 1381. And it is, yes, it's the Peasants' Revolt, headed, as they say, by Wat Tyler. A name that keeps cropping up. I've been thinking, what does that mean? What it's all about? And I did a little bit of research, and there was, Wikipedia and all that. And, of course, Wikipedia, we had an argument, actually. Not an argument, we debated. The boys, that's Paul and Jimmy, were saying, you can get as much information as you want off Wikipedia. And I was saying, well, there is a bit of a joke about it being edited by old people, and I'm sure that mostly it is fairly based on facts, because people can come in and edit it if it is wrong. However, you only get kind of, 1 or 2 pages of A4, effectively, on one subject at any one time. Although, of course, you've got plenty of links to link off to find out things, which I do appreciate. However, can you not say that to sit down and have a little book on, read of a book which might have 200 or 300 pages on a particular subject must give you a lot more insight to a subject. Also with some speculation and some, well, I don't know, just thoughts, inner mind stuff and all that kind of stuff. It must give you a rounded thing. It may go off on a different tangent, of course, than you actually want. But anyway, Wat Tyler, or Walter Tyler, was a character who was one of them that led the Peasants' Revolt, but apparently he didn't actually play such a big role in that as everybody makes out. And this book goes on to tell the whole story about what it was back at the end of the end of the 14th century, I suppose, 1381. About I think it was the 2nd or the 3rd poll tax, and what the incredible amount of money they were being asked to pay, and it was an unfair tax, and the peasants got up, and it kind of got a bit out of hand. I'm very interested to read that book, which I have. The next book on my list of books that came back, this is quite a meaty one, and this one is quite useful for me because I'm always getting confused with the order and sequence of the British monarchs, and I've been looking for ages for a book which is quite simple, and this wasn't overly cheap for a second-hand book, but it's very useful. It's a nice big tome of a book, which it's called the Oxford Illustrated History, which always is a bit of a worry because you think there's less words because they put in more pictures, but though sometimes the pictures do say more than a lot of the words do. But it's a very nice big tome, plenty of words in this. Illustrated History of the British Monarchy. So you can, when you're reading a book, or when I'm reading a book and I'm doing a bit of history and thinking, well, who was on the throne at this time? They keep referring back to Edward III or John I, and you go, well, when exactly which one was he again? You can do a little quick précis of who he was and a little bit about the times of them. So that, again, is quite useful. At some point, I do want to do a bigger study on all the kings and queens. And I'm reading, obviously, with the... what is the book I'm doing? The Great Fire of London, which is Charles II is currently, the restoration, the restoring of the king, King Charles, after, of course, King Charles I had been beheaded. The next book on another big tome. This one is a very nice one. Christopher Hibbert that wrote this. It's called The English, A Social History, from 1066 to 1945, which I suppose... Excuse me, that's the microphone disappearing. I suppose with multiculturalism and all this kind of stuff that we have in the UK and all the different laws that are being passed, we do kind of, maybe 1945 was the end of a time that you could actually put, inverted commas, the English to, which, I don't know, times that a lot of people sort of look back to. Very interesting. This one's broken up into all sorts of different, I don't know what you would call it, whether they are theses or what are those things that people do at university when they write long things, essays, isn't it? Maybe that's what it is. It talks about the villagers, the vagrants and the vagabonds, crime and punishment, pupils and masters, tournaments, pageants and miracles, drinking and playing, towns, factories and public health, shopping, masters and workers, grand tours, theatre shows, sex, marriage, divorce, pastime, pleasures, manners and dress, travellers, postmen and innkeepers, schoolboys and schoolgirls, actors and playgoers, clothes and class, readers and something I just missed past it. And lots and lots. And to me, that's going to be absolutely fascinating. That is a book that you could sit down and read those little chapters in one hit just before you go to sleep, which is rather nice. The last book that I purchased is one that of course, a lot of history gets referenced back to a number of diarists who were, of course, keeping certain times in history, very important times, which they do. That sentence didn't make any sense at all, did it? But then that is the nature of the Vogue. One of those, of course, is John Evelyn, whose diary I do want to get hold of. He was not a Victorian. He was in the age of the Stuarts. He was around when Samuel Pepys was around in the 17th century, and he wrote a long diary all his life. He kept one, and I didn't manage to pick up his diary, but that's interesting. But I got an abridged version, some of the highlights, if you like, of Pepys, Samuel Pepys, who, as you know, of course, Samuel Pepys was an English naval administrator and a member of Parliament, although he is, of course, most famous for his diary. And although Pepys actually had no maritime experience, he rose by patronage, hard work and a talent for administration, to the chief secretary to the admiral under King James II. He was also around during King Charles II, during the Great Plague, which he writes about, and also the Great Fire of London. And of course I keep getting bits and bobs of that. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice? And I managed to get myself a little sort of pocket book. It's got some very good, interesting bits on it. Now, it's a diary, and it does go January, February, March and April. And I thought, we could do a little bit of that, couldn't we, as the time goes on? Not every single day. We could do little bits from his diary and maybe compare his life to our lives. So with that in mind, I quickly went into the studio today, and I did actually give myself a few minutes to record a little bit of it. And thanks very much to the wonders of Phil Clark, who helped me with some of the sound effects which I required. But here is the first part of hopefully many, and if you enjoy them, do let me know. Samuel Pepys' diary. January the 1st, Lord's Day, 1660. This morning, we living lately in the garret, I rose, put on my suit with great skirts, not having lately worn any other clothes but them, went to Mr. Gunning's chapel at the Exeter House, where he made a very good sermon, dined at home in the garret, where my wife dressed the remains of a turkey, and in the doing of, she burned her hand. 2nd of January, 1660. In the morning, before I went forth, Old East bought me a dozen of bottles of sack, and I gave him a shilling for his pains. Then I went to Mr. Shepley, who was drawing of sack in the wine cellar to send to other places as a gift from my lord, and told me that my lord had given him order to give me the dozen of bottles. Then I went to Mr. Cruse and borrowed £10 of Mr. Andrews for my own use, and so went to my office, where there was nothing to do. January the 5th, 1660. Dined with Mr. Shepley at my lord's lodgings upon his turkey pie, and so to my office again, where the excise money was brought, and some of it told to soldiers till it was dark. Then I went home, and, writing a letter to my lord, told him the news that Monk and Fairfax were commanded uptown, and that the prince's lodgings were to be provided for Monk at Whitehall. January the 8th, Sunday. In the morning I went to Mr. Gunning's, where there was a good sermon, wherein he showed the life of Christ, and told us good authority for us to believe that Christ did follow his father's trade, and was a carpenter till 30 years of age. From thence to my father's to dinner, where I found my wife, who was forced to dine there, we not having one coal of fire in the house, and it being very hard frosty weather. 9th of January, 1660. For these 2 or 3 days I have been much troubled with thoughts how to get money to pay them that I have borrowed money of, by reason of my money being in my uncle's hands. 13th of January. To my office, where nothing to do. So, to Will's with Mr. Pinkney, who invited me to their feast at his hall next Monday. Thence I went home and took my wife and dined at Mr. Wade's. From thence home again. And my wife was very unwilling to let me go forth, but with some discontent would go out if I did. And I, going forth towards Whitehall, I saw she followed me, and so I stayed, and took her round through Whitehall, and so carried her home, angry. So there we are, that's the first part of Samuel Pepys, and if I remember, each month we will dip into his diary and we will follow his antics. He kept the diary over a 10-year period from, 9-year period, 10 years I suppose, 1660 to 1669. So there we are. The private diary that kept going through that period was published in the 19th century, so it did take a few hundred years before it managed to get out into the public, and is one of the most important primary sources of the English Restoration period. As I said earlier, it provides a combination of personal revelation and eyewitness accounts of such events as the Great Plague of London, the Second Dutch War, and, of course, the Great Fire of London. So now, one of the other books that I bought the other day, in fact on Sunday with Jimmy and Paul, when we were just sort of coming back from the Selden Arms Beer Festival after a little walk down to the seafront and an ice cream. Oh, we know how to live it up here on the old Vobes Show, I can tell you. Here in Worthing, we know how to do all that kind of malarkey. Was a book called The Taste of Britain, and yesterday I was going to feature a little bit of it, and we're running out of time rapidly, of course. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, here we are. This is a book that is broken up into different parts of Britain, and I figured we could go through this again from time to time because it's about food, and I want to talk about food because I was listening to the BBC Radio 4's food programme, which was very interesting, talking about local suppliers managing to supply food, fresh food like fish and poultry and meats, very fast, using the internet, that people can sit there like they might do to a supermarket, but rather than going getting the supermarket foods delivered to their door, they could get wet fish that has been caught and taken out of the ocean, wherever it's been captured, and arrives at their door 24 hours later, which does seem incredible. And that is one of the company's local artisan foods, as they call it, promise. This book, as I say, is divided up into lots of different parts, and it covers all sorts of things from, let's have a look, elderflower, cordial, watercress, Sussex slipcote cheese, which sounds very nice, Worcester sauce, Perry's, gingerbread, Bakewell puddings, Derby cheese, Newmarket sausages, Suffolk ham, lots of exciting thing. Fentiman's ginger brew. And not only that, it gives you a hint, and it doesn't necessarily give you a how-to-do recipe with some of these, but it does give you some sort of techniques on how to put these things together. And so with a little bit of jiggery-pokery, one could either go and try and source some of these things and do something with it, which is what I thought we would do. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Dittisham plum, but we don't have time for the Dittisham plum today because we have run out of that very precious commodity, which is now the sands of time have disappeared. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I've been Richard Vobes. You can find more information about me and the show from vobes.com, VOBES. If you're one of our new hospital radio listeners, hello, well, goodbye. I suppose I'm handing over to Lindsay Kerr to you, but for everybody else, take care, be good, and talk to you soon. Bye!
You're listening to Richard Vobes